right, hey everyone, this is Danielle from the Great Lakes Beacon. I'm here with Bill Cobbs, also running for Democratic governor nomination for 2018. Bill, thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate coming by. So I guess we'll get started with just tell us a little bit about yourself, where you come from, what your background is.
Well, I'll try and keep it as brief as I can. Born and raised in the city of Detroit, working class parents. My dad was a union member his whole life. Went to Detroit Public Schools. Peck Elementary, no longer there. Durfee Junior High School, recently sold. Cass Tech High School. When I finished high school, I went to college for a year. Like a lot of working class people, ran out of money. Found myself in the Navy, and I always say that the Navy made the rest of my life possible. Sent me back to the University of Michigan to complete my undergraduate degree. Completed my obligation to the Navy. Came back to Detroit. I had got accepted to Wayne State Law School. Needed a job, so I became a cop while I was going to law school. When I finished law school, I ended up going to work for Xerox. Spent the next 20-some years there, starting at the very bottom, and ultimately finishing my career at Xerox as the Global Vice President for Public Sector Consulting and Systems Integration. From there, I went to work for a company that was at that point called Icon. It's today Ricoh Corporation. I was a marketplace president for the East Coast. And one other job, working for a Danish software company, Surfray, as the CEO and president. Got to split my time between the U.S. and Denmark. Been married to the same person for, it'll be 37 years on August the 30th of next month. Yeah, you should be congratulating her because it's all because of her. Have 2 adult children, 1 girl, 1 boy. My son's 34. And my daughter's 29, 1 grandchild, a 3-year-old girl, very precocious, very interesting young lady. And that's a snapshot of my life.
So what made you decide to run for governor?
The shape that we're in as a state. We have forgotten in the state that the people should be the voice that government responds to. In Michigan today, the only voices that the people in Lansing hear are special interest and big money, and that's got to change.
So if you were elected, what would be the top 3 policy issues that you would want to address?
Oh, you're making this easy. For me, when I decided to run, I asked myself this question: what 3 or 4 things do we need to work on immediately to start getting some traction and getting our state moving forward again? And it came down to 4 things. I'm going to focus on making sure that we restore public pre-K through 12 education in this state so that we're giving all of our children a chance to get a quality education. I fundamentally believe that a good education is the gateway to any kind of social mobility. If you don't have that, you can't have social mobility. Second thing, infrastructure. We have kicked the infrastructure can in Michigan down the road so long that we just run out of road. We've got to do something about it right now. And when I talk about infrastructure, I'm not just talking about roads. I'm talking about our roads. I'm talking about our bridges and dams, our electrical infrastructure, everything that impacts the human quality of life. We can do something about it, and we can do it now. Now when you talk about having a statewide infrastructure program, you're really talking about something that's going to last for 20 to 25 years. So it won't get done in one governor's term. However, we can start to lay the foundation. And the collateral benefit that we'll get from that is we'll be able to create real jobs in the state that will last for the next 20 to 25 years. And those jobs will pay a living wage. Now, every time I talk about this, people say, that sounds wonderful. How are you going to pay for it? Well, we're going to pay for it by doing the third thing that's critical to our future. We have a state where every single person in the state, whether they make $20,000 a year or $1 million a year, pays the same tax rate. We need to make an adjustment. We need to move into the 21st century. So I'm going to move for a constitutional amendment that will allow us to implement a progressive income tax so that rather than having this fixed rate that's not fair to low earning families, we have a progressive tax that has people pay their proportional fair share of income tax. It'll have a top nominal rate on it of 10%. The only way that someone would be paying 10% is if they had a household income greater than $600,000 a year. I think that's fair. Because if they're making $600,000, $60,000 isn't going to break them one way or the other. Fourth, we live in a state that's surrounded by 20% of the entire world's freshwater supply. Yet we put it at risk every single day. That water is, in fact, Michigan's future. You know, we can't expect that Michigan can prosper if we don't have a policy that protects our most valuable asset. We allow things like Enbridge 5 to continue to operate long past the useful life cycle of that pipeline. And in fact, none of that oil effectively benefits Michigan, so I don't know why we do it. You know, we allow Nestle to pump 200 gallons per minute, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year for a $200 a year permit. And Nestle isn't pumping that water for altruistic reasons. They're pumping it because it's profitable for them. They're looking to find a way to take a resource that belongs to the people and turn it into something that they can monetize. And we can't allow that. So those four things, if we do them, will set us on the right course, give us a solid foundation so that we have the ability to start addressing the myriad of other problems we have in the state.
So what would you say makes you different from your opponents?
Well, you know, people always ask me, if you were a business guy, how are you different from Rick Snyder and from 45? And it's real simple. First of all, you know, I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth. I didn't get $1 million to start off and say, go do it, Junior, let's see what you can make happen. You know, I had to do it the hard way. And my whole career has been focused on building rather than tearing down. And the reason I've been successful at that is because I've understood that the key to getting the most out of people and organizations is through servant leadership. Leaders have to be willing to do the same things that they ask people to do every day. That's what makes me different from a Rick Snyder or a Donald Trump.
Obviously, the presidential election saw the Democratic Party's most know-it see a split. We have a question from one of our Facebook followers, named Danielle Fergan. Mm-hmm. How would you bring Democrats together in this election?
So, you know, one of the things that I talk about when I get an opportunity to get in front of people is that it doesn't matter whether you're a progressive, whether you're a traditional, or whether you're a conservative Democrat. There's really only one vote, you know, and if we don't figure out how we're going to come together and compromise and make sure that we're doing what's in the best interest of the collective and stop worrying about the me's, we're all going down. And when that boat goes down, it's not going to see somebody get saved because I'm a progressive or I was a conservative or I was a traditional Democrat. There will be no distinction. So we've got to stop finding ways of separating ourselves and find ways to come together.
And where do you see yourself fitting into that picture of bringing people together?
Well, I would suspect that I would be defined as a progressive. You know, I think the term is interesting. And the reason I say it's interesting is because depending on who you talk to, everybody has a different definition of what a progressive is. For me, a progressive is someone who recognizes that the most important thing we can do is be socially responsible, that we provide an opportunity for everyone, that we don't create a society made up of winners and losers.
You mentioned you're from Detroit. What would be your plan for ensuring that residents in urban centers like Detroit, like Flint, have a good quality of life? Obviously, Detroit's facing a lot of foreclosure crisis, water shutoffs right now, struggling to have a voice in the city. Flint, obviously well documented about the water crisis.
So you take a city like Detroit, you take a Flint. You know, the average household income in the city of Detroit is less than $25,000. That's well below the poverty level for a family of four. So the jobs that we'll create through our infrastructure program will pay an average of $17.50 an hour. That means we give people the opportunity to really begin to address the basic household requirements that they have. And one thing that everybody knows is working class people, when they make money, they spend money. They don't hoard it. They don't try and find a way to send it to the Cayman Islands to put away for something else. So we are better off as a society when we're providing a living for folks so that they can do the things that they need to do. You know, one of the things I didn't share with you is we're going to finance our infrastructure program through a 30-year municipal bond. The additional revenue that we will raise through our progressive income tax will allow us to service that bond. Any surplus money that we have after servicing the bond will go into a state fund for our college students so that they can apply to that fund for grant aid and not be so burdened with an extraordinary amount of loan debt when they get out of college. You know, we've created a situation today where young people go to college and they come out and they owe $50,000, $250,000 as they went to medical school, and they have years before they can even begin to think about having a life. That's not right. It's just not right. And it doesn't have to be that way.
A couple of issues we wanted to talk about with folks. One, what is your position on prevailing wage? Do you support prevailing wage?
Absolutely. You know, you can't talk about a living wage if you want to attack everything that is support of middle class and working class people getting ahead. That's just not right.
What about single payer health care?
Define what you mean for me.
So the movements, Bernie Sanders had kind of the concept of Medicare for all, that kind of system.
I'm bought into it 100%. You know, we have created a nightmare in this country around healthcare, and ACA was a great step towards getting to a single payer model, but we still have a long way to go. You know, and if you look at other, you know, first tier countries in the world, we're far behind in the way we provide healthcare to our citizens, and we can do a much better job. We just got to take the greed model out of it.
And our last question, a lot of folks and you had mentioned as well, education is a very central focus for a lot of folks. We have another question from our Facebook follower, Scott Urbanowski. How would you improve charter school accountability?
Well, I'm probably the wrong person to ask that question, because from my perspective, if I'm the next governor of the state of Michigan, we won't be using public dollars to fund charter schools. The charter school movement has been a disaster as far as I'm concerned, because you know it hasn't done anything to improve educational outcomes. It has been very destructive of communities and neighborhoods, because you know if somebody's like me who grew up when we had great public schools, they recognize that the public school is really the anchor for the community. When you take that school out of the community, you start the process of blight. You start the process of property values spiraling down. We can't afford to use public dollars to help private entrepreneurs get richer at the expense of our communities.
All right. Well, I think that is all the time that we have for right now. I appreciate you coming in.
Well, I appreciate your having me. I hope to talk to you again.
Okay. Good luck. Thank you.
Thank you.